Hi, let's look at the part 6 of the Azure DP 201 exam. Here we will cover some more questions which are totally real exam questions that comes in the certifications. This exam is very crucial if you want to establish your credentials as a in that field of data, and in order to complete the designing data solutions you will have to go ahead with DP 201 and DP 200 exam. So in this video series, we are covering only DP 201. I will put one more series for DP 200. Needless to say, please subscribe to my channel. Let's see questions. So this is the first question. The first question goes this way: you plan to deploy a reporting database. That's a keyword. The database would contain 30 GB of data, and the incremental data would be 300 MB each year. Every year, 300 MB, which is very small. And rarely will the database be accessed during second and third weeks of each month. During the first and the fourth week of each month, new data will be loaded. So first and fourth of each month, you get the new data loaded, and second and third weeks, rarely anybody is accessing it. So it is not a frequently accessed database. And to minimize the solution for the planned database, the solution requires us to minimize the costs and minimize administrative effort. Now let's look at the options for this one. So from the question, what do we get? At a high level, what we get is the data volumes are not high. The incremental data volumes is very small. This system is having an infrequent access type. Sometimes, during first and fourth of the month, heavy loads, maybe new data is coming. So that is also not heavy because entire year you are going to do 300 MB. So this data load is also not heavy, and it is rarely accessed. And you want to save cost, so you would want to definitely put a serverless kind of architecture or database here, because you are not using it every time. It is rarely accessed, and your requirement is you have to minimize the cost and minimize administrative efforts. So you want to use something of a managed serverless, which will help you achieve both. Let's look at the options. So if you see the HD Insight cluster, so this HD Insight cluster should be used for big data processing using Spark. The storage is, however, data lake storage, and it is not a database. So we do not have huge amount of data volumes, and this is asking about uh, the solution for the planned database. It is not asking about how fast, you can compute it, immediately. So SD clusters should not be used for this purpose. Let's see the next option: Azure SQL Database Hyperscale. Hyperscale should be used if the data volumes are extremely huge in terabytes. So that's not the case. So we will skip this option. Business critical. So business critical is used for low latency and high resiliency workloads. So there are two models: general purpose and business critical. So business critical you should use when you will constantly have workloads and very high workloads. So here we are seeing the workloads rarely will have it, and it is also not high. So there is no point putting a business critical because you want to minimize your cost. Both this hyperscale and business critical, they are extremely expensive. So you will not be able to meet the minimized cost with this. So that leaves us with this option: SQL database serverless. So since it is serverless, so it will, the compute will be inactive if there is no activity, and but the storage will still be active. And this is the cost effective way, because whenever the compute is not needed, there is no activity, the server less will shut it down, but the storage will still be there. You will be charged for the storage but not for the compute, and that way you will minimize your costs, and your administrative effort is also less because it is self managed. So if you see here, uh, serverless databases automatically pause during inactivity periods when only storage is built, and automatically resume when activity returns. Serverless helps focus on building apps faster and more efficiently, and it is administrative effort is less because these databases are always up to date, highly available, and benefit from built-in intelligence for further security and performance optimization. So the administrative effort is also less. Let's see the next question. Now, this is the question. You have streaming data that is received by Azure Event Hubs and stored in Azure Blob Storage. The data contains social media posts that relate to a keyword of Contoso. So what it's saying is you have social media like Twitter feeds coming in. In that you have to look for Contoso and Litware in the same post every 30 seconds you have to look, and that data must be available in Microsoft Power BI in near real time. So the solution they have given, and we have to say if it is correct or not. So you use Azure Data Factory and an event trigger to detect when new blobs are created. So when you are doing something near real time or real time, and you put a data factory, which is an ETL, so that's a batch processing, and it can never meet the near real time or real time um, requirements. It's very difficult to maintain through that. Not the best option. Okay. Plus, what it's saying is it will get the data through this ETL data factory ETL. It will put that data in Azure SQL database, and then it will plug Power BI and report. So this will not meet the near real time requirement. This is no, because if you are going to do that kind of processing like every 30 seconds, it will never finish in time. So the right option here is no. So let's look at the next question. So it's the same question, but the solution this time is different. They are saying they will plug Stream Analytics that uses an input from Event Hubs, which is perfectly fine, and that's what you need for real time or near real time processing. And then send the data to SQL database, and you plug Power BI to that. No, then again this one, it will not be near real time. So whenever you put something straight away into a database and do reporting, that's your standard process, and you will never be able to meet, or very difficult to meet, the real time or a near real time goal. So this is no. If they had put Azure Stream Analytics and plugged uh, Power BI directly, that's possible. Power BI should directly be plugged to the Stream Analytics. That will give you real time and a near real time SLA. So the correct answer is option B here. Let's look at the next question. It's the same question, but a different option. So it's the same question. The option this time says you use Databricks to create Scala notebook, and then you use structured streaming job to connect to the event hub. This is wrong. If you are getting your data into Databricks and then get into a table and then put Power BI, this option should be no, because it was extremely difficult to meet the near real time SLA. So this one is no. This has to be option B. For this question, the solution has to be Stream Analytics, and you plug Power BI on Stream Analytics. Let's look at the next question. It's the same question but with a different solution, this time with the right solution. So same question, but this time it says you use Azure Stream Analytics, and it takes input from Event Hubs. So this is Event Hub already there. It takes input from Event Hub to count that post specify keywords, and then it sends the data directly to Power BI. This is correct. So I had shown this diagram before for some of the previous questions. So what happens here is these are in the telemetry solution. Whenever the data feed comes in, Event Hub takes it, and in this question, similar to this question, we should, for real time and near real time, we should get the data through Azure Stream Analytics into Power BI. This is the path we should follow. And if you want to do further, data retention and for some further processing in the data warehouse, etc., you get it into the data lake, and from there you can get it into Databricks or SQL database and plug Power BI, whatever you want to do. But that is not for real time or near real time. The real time route is this route. So the correct option here is A. Yes. So let's look at the next question. So the question goes this way: you have an Azure Data Lake storage account, and that has a virtual network service endpoint. Okay, so this is your data lake storage, and it has a virtual network service endpoint. The endpoint is exposed. Now you want to plug Data Factory here, and it will extract the data from the data lake, and the data will then be loaded in a Synapse database using Polybase. That is because Polybase is Polybase can read external files and etc. So data will be loaded here. Now, uh, which authentication method should you use to access data lake storage? So data lake storage, Data Factory is going to access it. Data Factory is on a virtual machine, and whenever we have a virtual machine, it is definitely better to use managed identity authentication for this purpose. So if you see this, the managed identity authentication, what it says is you can enable the managed identity in one-click experience. And why do we do it? Have uh, you have this on a Windows virtual machine, and managed identities help you uh, with accessing the data lake in this regard. So let's look at options A and C: shared access key authentication and account key authentication. So account key authentication is a part of shared access key authentication, and so these are the access key tokens are transferred between data lake and data factory. So when you want an application to be accessed to, it's better to put a managed entity. Managed entity is also used if you are a developer and very frequently you want to access those applications. So we can create a managed entity and use key vaults to store your secret credentials. So B is the right answer. Let's jump to the next question. So let's see this question. You have a line of business that reads files and writes to Azure Blob Storage, and these are the provide the highest possible availability and minimize the potential data loss. These are two requirements. So if we go with these options, we have to choose three. Let's select the first one. From the app store, query the last sync of the data of the storage account. So if you select the last sync time, that will only give I mean, if you have why is last thing used? If you have a secondary storage in some other region like geo redundant region, then if you want to see if the when was the last time the data got synced, in case of differences between the two regions, then you use a last sync. You will not use a last sync for this highest possible availability or potential data loss. So we are striking this out. Option B: from the storage account, enable soft deletes. We would enable soft delete because what soft delete does is it keeps it there for at least 3 months. And if you want to retrieve it back, suppose it was a delete by mistake, you can take it back. You can bring it back. So that is something which is definitely needed if you want to minimize the potential data loss and provide the highest possible availability. So this will help you minimize the data loss. Now let's see this one. Option C: from the storage account, enable read-only zero latency storage. Yes, that will provide the highest possible availability, because now instead of storage in one region, you will have a redundant region where the storage can happen. So this is also one of the options which looks correct. So from the app, add retry logic to the storage account iteration. So retry logic is used if something fails, then again you have to retry. That doesn't help you with highest possible availability or minimize your data loss. So that's the wrong answer. So the last one: from the storage account, enable a time-based retention policy. So time-based retention policy is needed because based on this retention policy helps you with applying locks on the delete. So it is something sort of, you can delete it, you can never update it. Once you put a time-based retention policy, you can never update or delete. You can only delete after the retention policy is over, retention period is over, and but you will never be able to update it. It is immutable. It makes the storage immutable. So this is the right option. because if you make it immutable, or then you can prevent the data loss, or that is something which is your requirement. So hence these three are the correct options and correct answers actually. Let's see the next question. This is your you're designing a storage solution on blob storage, and the blob storage will support recovery of data if the data is overwritten accidentally. What should you recommend? So you don't, is the recovery should still be possible if the data is overwritten accidentally. Let's see the options. We'll start from D to A. D, use read-only redundant access. So this, what will happen is you will have two regions, one primary region and one secondary region, and there will be a replication happening in between. So if you accidentally delete the data, that data will again get replicated into the secondary region, and you cannot even recover from the secondary region also. So this option is wrong. Enable diagnostic logging. Logging will only help you with who fired the query, who deleted the data, etc., but it cannot help you with recovery. So this option is also wrong. So add a resource lock. You cannot add a resource lock like that. You will have to set the retention period, and if you do that, then it makes the storage immutable. So this option is also wrong. So you have enabled soft delete. This will help you. It will keep this object alive for some time. And if you happen to know after 2 days or a week that that data was deleted accidentally, by checking your logs and etc., you've come to know that that is an accidental delete. You want to recover it back. You can do it using soft delete. The data is still there for some time period. So this is option A is the right answer. Let's look at the next question. So the solution says you use Azure Data Factory schedule trigger to execute a pipeline that copies the data to a staging table in the warehouse, and then use stored procedure to execute the R script. This is not fully correct, partially correct. Probably we can say it is yes for now, but uh, so this question could have had more text. This solution. So what I get from this is they are building a data factory, which is an ETL, which will trigger and execute a pipeline, which will copy the data from the staging zone of the Azure storage account to a staging table in the warehouse, in the Synapse Analytics warehouse, and then it will run uh, R script. Okay, and then it should finally populate the transformed data into a table. So this solution is a bit messed up. Probably in the recent exams we must be getting better solutions. First of all, for executing R script, you don't need a stored procedure. So I would put this as no for now, because this is a bit messed up. So the reason I'm putting no is because R script can directly connect to Synapse and connect to a table, transform that data and load it to another table. That is possible. Or can connect. So it can connect and produce a final flat file probably. Mm, I'm not very sure about stored procedure being used to execute the R script. R script can run directly. So what I did is I tried to search, and it seems probably possible uh, using stored procedure. Looking at this uh, documentation, R code for SQL, you can do it. Though this documentation is for SQL Server machine learning services, but probably that is doable. So I would change my answer to yes, because I mean R has a inbuilt capability to connect to the database, but you can also do it through stored procs, and it may not be incorrect to do that. So let's look at the next question. So it's the same question but a different solution. You schedule Databricks jobs that executes R notebook and then insert data into data warehouse. So uh, why would we put a Databricks cluster, spin off the cluster, and then execute our notebook? We could have done it directly uh, in Synapse Analytics, connect R directly to Synapse and do it. So this option is wrong, and we need a ETL here. Databricks is not a ETL. Data Factory is the ETL. Hence the answer would be yes, option A. So let's look at the next question. So we have the same question but a different solution. This time the solution says you use an Azure Data Factory schedule trigger to execute pipeline, which is fine. That executes a Databricks notebook and then inserts. We don't need a Databricks cluster or a Databricks notebook. Uh, we could use, okay, we need some sort of notebook or something, so we could use stored procedure directly and execute the R scripts. So this option is wrong. The correct answer is B. No, this option will not work. This solution will not work. So let's look at the next question. So you have a real-time analysis solution, and the solution uses Event Hub to ingest data and Stream Analytics to analyze the data. The cloud job is configured to use 120 stream units. You need to optimize the performance. What two options you will choose? So the first one says, so the first option is implement event ordering. So there are like events coming in, and ordering the events will not have a big impact on the performance, because if there are thousands of events, even if you order it, it still needs to be processed. So scale up SU count for job ups. That means if the number of jobs increases or if the queue increases, then instead of 120 stream units, if you need hundreds and 80 stream units, you should go ahead with that. That should align with the number of jobs. So this option is correct. Third one says user defined functions. That will not help you with performance. Option D suggests scale the SU count for job down. So even if the number of jobs are less, scaling that down will not help you with performance. Scaling that up to match the job will help the performance. So D is wrong. Now options E and F. So if you see, both are same, but one is partitioning the input, the other is partitioning the output. In this case, you should partition the input, because uh, the event hub is ingesting data, and an Azure Analytics Stream Cloud is sent to analyze data. So uh, the Stream Analytics input, if you have partitioned, and if you have the stream units for the number of jobs, then that will take care of take care of performance. If you partition the output, the partitioning of output works from a performance standpoint if there is a subsequent process like Synapse Analytics or Databricks where this output is going. So the partitioning will help with the performance when sending the data to downstream systems. But in this case, there is no mention of downstream system. Hence, the two correct options would be options B and E. So if you partition the outputs and the output is going to Azure Data Lake or Azure Functions, tables, these many things, then it will help you with partitioning the output. And inputs are like Event Hub, so you need to set partition key explicitly partition by, so that will help you with the performance in our question. So let's look into the next question. So this is a question: you manage a process that performs analysis of daily web traffics on SD cluster. So you have these process, these are all web traffics coming in from these web servers, and every day they are producing 10 MB file. Each server is producing 10 MB size files, and there are 250 servers. They are writing to data lake storage. This is the data lake Gen 2 storage, and then it goes to SD cluster. Now the question says you want to improve the performance of this process. What will you do? Let's look at the options. Option A: so combine the daily log files for all servers in one file. Yes, this is the right option, because see, we have to choose two options. This is one of the right options because you have to So if you see the file size here, it says, so this is a website where I've gone to check the Azure Data Lake storage, what performance optimization you have to apply. And this is what is happening. So file size, it says each file should be at least between 256 MB to 100 GB. So in this case, there are 250 servers and 10 MB coming from each. So our approximately 2.5 GB file we should club together and put into one file. That will help with the performance. So this is right. Let's look at option B. Option B says increase the value of MapReduce memory parameter. Now with SG Insight, you can use all of these products Hadoop, Spark, Kafka, etc. But the question does not give us insight as to what happens after HD in the SDA cluster. What happens? What will they use? And hence we are striking this option out because we don't know for sure what will be used. The third one says move the log files into folders so that ECS logs are in its own folder. Yes, this option is correct. In the documentation, we see organizing the time series in folders. This is where you have the folder names as well as the file names. Put the timestamp there. And this is right. C is right. D, increase the number of worker nodes. So in the SD cluster, we have physical yarn layer, workload layer, etc., etc. So if you run the cluster with more nodes or large size VMs, that is performance efficient. If you see here, the SD cluster usually is composed of two head nodes and some worker nodes, and hence just increasing the worker nodes will not help. You also have to increase the head nodes. Hence D is wrong. Let's look at E. Like I told, SD Insight comes with these products. We don't know which products will be used. So if you see in the question, it does not mention about the product that will be used inside SDI cluster. So we will strike out C because we are not aware of what happens post that. So we will only stick to this process and performance tune this process. Hence A and C are right. So let's look at the next question. So you are designing an anomaly detection solution for streaming data from IoT Hub. The solution must meet the following requirements. The blue are the requirements. Send the output to Synapse Analytics, identify spikes and dips in time series, and minimize development and configuration effort. So we have three options given here. Let's see the concept of IoT Hub first. IoT Hub internally use Event Hub, and if you see these are from IoT sensors, the data is coming to Event Hub. So from the Event Hub, you can have Azure Streams and it can connect to Snap Analytics direct. So if you see this Azure documentation, the Snap Analytics can output, the output from Stream Analytics can go directly to Snap Analytics. This is configured here, and you can do that. The analytics jobs can output the dedicated SQL table in Snap Analytics. So Databricks is a cluster. It is similar to a database, maybe a cluster where you can bring the data, but it will not help you with streaming the data in real time. So hence that is wrong. And SQL database is a database. It is not helping you to stream the data. Then it is also wrong. So this is the correct answer, Azure Stream Analytics, and I showed you how to arrive at the right answers. Let's look at the next question. So you have to manage a solution that uses SD Insight clusters, and you have to monitor the cluster performance. So which tool to use to monitor cluster performance? It's Amari Web UI. I'll show you the documentation as well. So if you see this documentation, it says manage SD Insight clusters by using Apache Amari Web UI. Now you may ask about REST API. That is option C, Amari REST API. So if it's a REST API documentation, the clusters, it manages the cluster by providing a web UI backed by REST APIs. So when you use the web API internally, the REST API is already used. So that's why web UI will be our answer. Now let's see option B, Azure SD Insight REST API. If you see this is used to manage the SD Insight resources, not the cluster, through Azure Resource Manager. This is a different purpose. Let's look at option D, Azure Log Analytics. So if you see this documentation, Log Analytics is a tool that Azure portal used to edit and run log queries from data collected by Azure Monitor Logs. So Monitor Logs will collect the data. If you want to run analytics on that, you can use Log Analytics. A different purpose. It is not to monitor SD Insight clusters. This is wrong. Let's look at SD Insight .NET SDK. So .NET SDK, it is used for managing your SD Insight cluster and submitting and monitoring the Hadoop jobs. So this our question says monitor cluster performance and status. I think it just monitors the cluster, but it doesn't is used for status monitoring. If you see Amari UI, it is used for status monitoring also. It gives the status of each and every task and etc. So and this solves our problem. We will go ahead with Amari Web UI. This is the right answer. So this brings us towards the end of this video. Please subscribe my channel. I'll be posting some more videos related to this DP 201 certifications. But if I don't get enough likes and subscribes, then I might not do that.